Well, I just saw Prey, and I'm happy to report that it did not make me want to jump off a bridge. You see, after watching the trailer for this movie, the only thought I had was,
oh no, not again.
But in all honesty, I think Prey turned out to be a solid step in the right direction for the Predator franchise, despite some flaws. Now, to tamp down on some of the hype, no, this is not as good as the first movie. But I would definitely rate it higher than whatever the hell The Predator was.
Predator!
One of the main reasons for that is that rather than messing with the tone or adding additional motivations to the Predator, Prey opted to go back to basics. One Predator hunting for sport in a target-rich environment. However, to avoid making things too similar, this time our story takes place in good old 1719. And instead of the main character being a tough guy that radiates pure balls, the main character of this story is a young Native American woman named Naru, who wants to prove to her tribe that she can be a hunter just like the boys. Now, admittedly, I think the marketing for Prey made it seem like it was going to be nothing more than some preachy, woke girl power thing. You know, the kind of project where the character essentially just stares into the camera and berates the audience for 2 hours. But much to my surprise, this had more of a don't judge a book by its cover or girls can be tough too kind of feel, so it didn't really come across as being resentful or anything like that. For the most part, the focus was just on this girl desperately wanting to prove herself as a hunter, and the challenges she faces to ultimately accomplish that. Amidst the trend of characters that are great at everything and never face any real opposition, I was happy to see that this protagonist actually practices her skills, and makes some serious mistakes along the way that nearly cost her her life. That being said though, there were definitely those moments where they make her unrealistically badass without properly setting it up. Like when she struggles to catch a few rabbits, but then like a day later kills 4 frontiermen with a tomahawk and some knives. I mean, come on. Either she's an inexperienced underdog who's in way over her head, or she's an Assassin's Creed character. But I'm afraid she can't be both at the same time. Anyway, even though moments like this are present, I think the real problem with the main character, and the story in general, is that Naru is just way too lucky, and it sort of undermines the whole message of the movie. What I mean to say is that if the point of the story is to show how an underdog can succeed by taking advantage of the fact that others underestimate them, it's probably a bad idea to have that character get out of nearly every dangerous situation through mostly blind luck. Pretty much every time this girl is about to be killed, something very convenient happens to prevent it. When she gets knocked out while fighting the lion, her brother kills it and brings her to safety. When she's about to get mauled by the bear, the predator swoops in and takes it out. When the predator is running after her, she steps on a trap, and then the predator backs off. After so many of these convenient escapes, I couldn't help but feel like Naru wasn't as clever as the film was making her out to be. And nowhere was this more evident than how she ultimately wins the day. You see, early on, it's established that instead of having a plasma caster, this predator has some kind of arrow weapon, where the arrows go to wherever the laser on its mask is pointing. However, this predator is so stupid that it will fire this weapon repeatedly even when that laser is nowhere near the target that it thinks it's aiming at. This gives Naru an idea, and so leading up to the final battle, she knocks the predator's mask off and uses it as part of her own trap. The predator climbs up out of some mud, tries to shoot Naru with this weapon, and unwittingly shoots itself right in the face for the killing blow. Now, while this may have seemed like a big triumphant moment for Naru, I'm afraid she only won because luckily for her, this predator was a big, dumb, stupid asshole. I mean, if he had just walked out of the mud and choked her out, she'd be completely fucked. Good lord. I can't believe the predator doesn't understand how its own technology works.
This is ridiculous.
I don't know. I got what they were trying to do here with Naru, and adding the payoff of the mud she got stuck in earlier was a nice touch. But when you step back and look at her journey as a whole, I just don't think it quite works the way the writers think it does. Beyond the mechanics of the story though, the only other thing that Prey loses points on for me is how two-dimensional it can feel at times. I mean, there really isn't much more going on here than the surface level. Characters say exactly what they feel and think, and they don't go much deeper than that. I didn't really get a sense for what kind of personality anyone has, and other than the one-sentence motivations that they state explicitly, I couldn't tell you a thing about them. This lack of depth and charisma really sucks. because having memorable characters is one of the core strengths of the first film. I mean, compare these characters to even the minor ones in previous entries, and the difference is night and day.
You're hit. You're bleeding, man. I ain't got time to bleed.
To lean into some positives though, a couple things I think Prey definitely does have going for it is a great score and some pretty solid direction. The music here is very effective at setting the mood for the film's emotional beats, and it's actually been stuck in my head for a good few days now, which is a good sign in my book. In terms of the direction, the cinematography is pretty cool, with the landscapes in North America looking majestic as ever, and there are plenty of decently choreographed action scenes to boot. The only thing that really bugged me about the visuals at all was that some of the special effects were a little dodgy. Undoubtedly, a lot of that probably comes from the fact that this is a straight-to-Hulu release, but I feel like in 2022 we could have gotten some of these things to look just a bit better than they do. Anyway, while Prey is ultimately a pretty flawed film in my estimation, I don't think it was made to spite the fans of the franchise that it's a part of like some other films I can think of. At worst, Prey seems like a different idea that just wasn't executed quite as well as it could have been. But you know what? I applaud them for at least trying to make a decent movie out of it. I mean, in addition to attempting to tell a character-driven story in a fresh setting, the main character and theme are a nice counterbalance to the 100% pure beef of the original. And shit, there's even a little dollop of fan service in the form of explaining where that pistol came from at the end of Predator 2. Of course, that means that sometime after the events of this movie, Naru probably gets annihilated by another Predator, but in a twisted sort of way, that kind of fits with the whole Predator-Prey circle of life thing, so I guess it works. At the end of the day though, if you're looking for something to watch that's not complete sludge, Prey isn't a bad way to burn a couple of hours. But don't expect it to capture the same magic from one of the best sci-fi action flicks ever made. Until next time...